think cheating was something that happened in other people's lives, the kind of drama you hear about at work or see online, never something that would sit at your own dinner table, never something that would sleep next to you every night and kiss you goodbye in the morning. Like nothing was wrong. But that was before I started noticing the small changes in my wife. The kind you can't explain at first because they seem harmless on their own. Like how she suddenly cared more about going to the gym than she ever had before. Buying new workout clothes that didn't look like they were meant for sweating but more like they were meant to be seen. How she started leaving earlier than usual and coming home later. Always saying the gym was crowded or she ran into someone she knew. And I didn't question it because honestly, I was proud of her. We had both talked about getting healthier, and I thought maybe she was just finally sticking to it. But then there were the other things, like how her phone became something she guarded without making it obvious, turning it face down more often, taking it with her even for quick things like grabbing the mail or going to the bathroom, and I told myself I was overthinking because trust is supposed to mean you don't jump to conclusions, but trust also makes you blind if you're not careful, and I was definitely blind for a while, until one night when she came home later than usual and I asked her how the gym was, and she gave me an answer that felt rehearsed, not wrong exactly, just too smooth, like she had said it before in her head. And that was the first moment something inside me shifted. Not a full suspicion yet, but enough to make me start paying attention. And once you start paying attention, you can't really stop. You start noticing patterns like how she always mentioned the same guy's name casually, saying things like, "Oh yeah, Jake was there again. He's really into fitness," or "Jake showed me a better way to do this workout." And I didn't think much of it at first because people make gym friends. But then it became almost every conversation about the gym included him somehow. And I remember one night lying in bed next to her while she was scrolling on her phone, her face lit up by the screen. And she smiled in a way I hadn't seen directed at me in a long time. And I asked what was funny, and she just said, "Nothing, just something online," and turned the phone slightly away. And that's when the uneasiness turned into something heavier, something harder to ignore. But I still didn't confront her because part of me was afraid of being wrong and looking paranoid, and part of me was afraid of being right. So instead, I did what a lot of people probably do. I started quietly watching, not in a controlling way, just observing. And over the next couple weeks, the pattern became impossible to ignore. The late returns, the extra effort in her appearance, even on days she said she wasn't going anywhere special, the way she seemed emotionally distant at home but oddly energized after the gym, like she was getting something there that she wasn't getting with me. And it hurt to even think that, but I couldn't unsee it. And then came the moment that really broke everything open. It was a Saturday morning, and she said she was going to the gym like usual. But something in me told me to follow, not immediately, not in some dramatic way, just a quiet decision that I needed to know the truth. So I waited a few minutes and then got in my car and drove there. And I told myself I'd just check, just see if she was actually working out, and then I'd leave and feel stupid for doubting her. But when I got there, I didn't see her car in the main lot, which already didn't make sense. So I drove around, and that's when I spotted it parked further back near the side entrance, and my heart started pounding in a way I can't fully describe. Like my body already knew what my mind didn't want to accept, and I parked a distance away and walked in, trying to act normal, scanning the gym floor for her. But she wasn't there. Not on the treadmills, not by the weights, nowhere. And I felt this mix of confusion and dread. So I checked the locker area. Still nothing. And then I stepped back outside, trying to think. And that's when I noticed the small cafe attached to the gym. The kind of place people grab smoothies after workouts, and I don't know why, but I walked over and looked through the window, and there she was, sitting at a table, not in workout mode at all, just relaxed, laughing, leaning forward in a way that felt intimate. And sitting across from her was him, Jake. And the way they looked at each other told me everything I needed to know before I even saw the rest, before I even noticed how his hand reached across the table and she didn't pull away, how she smiled at him in that same way I had seen the other night on her phone. And it felt like the air got sucked out of my lungs, like the world narrowed down to just that window and that moment. And I stood there longer than I should have, frozen between wanting to walk in and confront them and wanting to disappear entirely. And in the end, I didn't go in. I just walked back to my car and sat there, trying to process what I had just seen. Because even though it was obvious, there's still a part of you that wants to explain it away, to say maybe it's not what it looks like. But deep down I knew. And the drive home was one of the longest of my life, every mile filled with memories of us, of our life together, now all of it feeling uncertain. And when she came home later that day, acting normal, asking what I wanted for dinner, talking about her workout, I realized something else. Not just that she was cheating, but that she was comfortable lying about it. And that hurt even more. And I didn't confront her right away. Not that day. Because I needed to think. I needed to decide what I was going to do. And over the next week, I gathered more clarity, not evidence in some detective sense, but clarity in how she acted, how little effort she put into hiding it emotionally. And eventually, I confronted her, calmly, at first, telling her I had gone to the gym that day and saw her. And I'll never forget the look on her face, the way the color drained, the way she tried to speak and couldn't find the words. And then came the excuses, the "it's not what you think," followed quickly by "it just happened," and then the tears, and finally the partial truth, that it had been going on for a while, that it started as just workouts and turned into something more. And hearing that confirmed everything. And in that moment, something inside me shut off. Not in anger, not in a loud, dramatic way, just a quiet realization that the marriage I thought I had was already gone. And I told her I needed space. And over the next weeks, we separated. And here's where karma comes in. Not in some instant dramatic punishment, but in the slow unraveling of what she thought she was building. Because from what I later learned, things with him didn't last. Once the secrecy was gone, so was the excitement, and he wasn't interested in a real relationship the way she thought, and she was left dealing with the fallout, not just losing me, but also realizing that what she risked everything for wasn't real. While I, on the other hand, started rebuilding, focusing on myself, finding peace in ways I hadn't before. And I won't pretend it was easy. It wasn't. But there's something about going through that kind of betrayal that forces you to grow, to see things clearly. And in the end, the karma wasn't about revenge. It was about outcomes. She lost something real, chasing something temporary, and I lost something I thought was permanent but gained clarity and eventually something better. And if there's one thing I learned from all of it, it's that the truth always shows itself. Sometimes quietly, sometimes painfully, but always eventually. And when it does, you have to decide who you are going to be on the other side of it.